This is part of my routine that I like to do every day. I write down KTF on my calendar. I also like to write it down on this piece of paper. This one I've had since November, actually. And KTF just means keep the faith. It's a daily reminder for me to keep believing in myself and what I'm doing as a musician.
I'm thinking about the last 6 years, the good and the bad, how much I miss playing live at this moment, how much I miss having my band, the daily struggles to continue or not, the doubts if this is ever going to happen, my hopes and dreams that keep this alive. I know my music is good. I keep the faith that there's a fan base out there that my music will connect with. I've learned that fear limits you and your vision. It serves as blinders to what may be just a few steps down the road for you. The journey is valuable. Believing in your talents, your abilities, and your self-worth. And dreamers learn to steer by the stars.
Hey, what's up? My name is Mike. I'm the host of the Mike Seibert Radio podcast, as well as the founder of the Monday Project on 89.9 KGRG FM. And that's actually where I first got connected with Michael and his music. It was my first, maybe my second shift being a DJ at KGRG. I was still very new. And I was asking my audience for song requests. Because basically at that time we were playing a lot of music that was still very new to me, a lot of stuff that I wasn't familiar with. We were playing stuff like All Time Low, Sleeping with Sirens, Knuckle Puck, 4 Year Strong, a lot of Warped Tour bands that I wasn't actually familiar with at that time. Anyhow, I heard from a band called These Young Fools, and they wanted me to check out their new song called A Nice Place to Visit, which I had heard on KGRG before, and I remember it being one of the first songs I encountered that really stuck with me, and it would be an example I would point to as to what, at least my interpretation of what KGRG sounds like, trying to explain it to folks that maybe weren't as familiar with current alternative rock. It wasn't until later, though, that I discovered that they were actually a local band. I just assumed that they were a national touring band, given how that song sounded in context with the other stuff that we were playing at the time. And it was even later still that I learned that it was Michael who had reached out to me that night. And that was really kind of the beginning of our connection and the beginning of collaborations we would do.
So where do you go from here? How do you find the energy to recover from being on the verge of breaking out, then lose half the band, and know you have to start over once again? You just have to keep the faith, and only the strong survive.
I
At the beginning of 2016, I just got back home after spending Christmas with my family in Albuquerque. They could tell that I was extremely upset about the band falling apart, and were wondering what I was going to do next. And even some of them thought that I should just move back home. But I told them that I'm not done with Seattle quite yet, and that I just have to work harder than before, and I gotta build the band back up once again. Well, after the band fell apart, I did immediately put up a Craigslist ad looking for a drummer and a bass player. But as a few months went by, I heard absolutely nothing. So when I got back to Seattle after Christmas, I decided that I wanted to start going to local shows and scouting out drummers and bass players. Well, I didn't see anybody that I felt could fit the band or anybody interested. Also, Ethan started to claim that he was having voice and throat problems and actually was going to the doctor about it and had no clue why he was having those problems. So I was put in a very tough and interesting position where I'm like, dude, do we have to start auditioning singers now? So we actually felt that that wouldn't be a bad idea just to see what was out there. And I thought that a possible solution could be that we could move Ethan to the drums, because I knew that he was a great drummer. He played drums for me in a band before. I knew he was perfectly capable of playing the songs, and I thought maybe that he could do backup singing. And so we decided to go ahead and put the focus on auditioning singers and just looking for a bass player. Yeah, I created another Craigslist ad to audition singers. We got several replies right away, actually. And so I thought it'd be best to have them come to our studio and to learn a nice place to visit beforehand and then perform it for us. That was a very interesting time, and we met a lot of characters. And even our manager, Stu, wanted to audition, so we let him. Good old Stu, his heart was in the right place. I mean, he could be a hell of a stage performer, but not quite the vocals we were looking for. Sorry, Stu. I love you, man. After the auditions, we decided to have a meeting at Cafe Vita, which is one of my favorite coffee places in Capitol Hill and right down the road from our studio. We wanted to discuss the auditions and how we felt about it. And only one vocalist really stood out to us, this dude named Jeff. And so I asked Ethan point blank, how do you really feel about moving to the drums and having another frontman for these young fools? He said it would be fine. However, he expressed that his vocals and throat were feeling better and actually said that we should just stop auditioning singers. I mean, I was thrilled to hear this because I believed in Ethan's voice, and I thought that he was a great songwriter and wrote awesome melodies for our songs, and I didn't want anything to change in that area of the band. And so we decided right then and there just to stop auditioning singers and put the focus back on finding a drummer and a bass player. At this point, it was still very early on in the year. Once we decided to stop auditioning singers, we got back into the studio and started to rehearse our acoustic set once again, because we had some shows coming up. Fortunately, we still had our corporate sponsor, this insurance group called Gateway. And one of the agreements was we had to play a certain amount of times during the month. We had to bring a Gateway sign and put it on stage, and to give them a plug during our set. I mean, I was very grateful for how much they believed in the project and for all their support. The money they gave us really helped us out when we needed it the most, especially during this time to help us pay our studio rent. And down the road, we were able to get the equipment we needed, we were able to buy merch, and to run Facebook ads. Around early spring, we were auditioning bass players, and nobody really impressed me until we received this message from one of our Craigslist ads from this dude named Ryan. And at that time, he was fresh to the Seattle area,
He was from Houston, Texas, and he actually graduated from the Berklee School of Music with a bachelor's in production and engineering, and his principal instrument was the electric bass. So I was really excited about that and looking forward to meeting him. I set him up for an audition, and I had him learn a nice place to visit beforehand. And when he came to the studio, he nailed the song in one take, and I knew right then and there that this was the guy. And so I asked him to join TYF, and he said yes. And after that, I just had to put my focus on looking for a drummer. About a month after Ryan joined the band, we auditioned a few guys on drums, but nobody quite worked out, and I knew that I had to really step up my search. So I remember one night I was looking through all the ads, and I came across this one from this dude saying that he recently just moved to the Seattle area, and he's a drummer looking for an alternative rock band. So I immediately sent him a message. The following morning, I got a reply from this dude named Corey. We exchanged numbers, started immediately chatting about music. He sent me a link to one of the SoundCloud projects. I listened, and I could tell right away that this dude could play. And I also found out that he could sing really well because he sang to some of the tracks he sent me. So I set him up with an audition, and just like the rest, I had him learn a nice place to visit beforehand. And when he came to the studio, just like Ryan, he nailed the song in one take, where like, you want to learn another one? So I had Ethan step to the drums, and we had Corey watch us play one of our songs called Playing Dead, so he could just get the gist of the song and learn the parts and transitions. And so once we went through the song, I asked Corey, "You think you got it?" And I fully didn't expect him to really know all the parts and to know the transitions. However, we started playing, and I kid you not, we got through the whole song. He knew every part, every transition, and I knew right then and there that this was the guy. So I offered him a spot in TYF, and he said yes. And I just thought to myself, all right, here we go again. Let's get this thing started. About 4 to 5 long months of trying to put the band back together, I was definitely really excited that Ryan and Corey joined. I told them that we had some shows coming up because we had to fulfill our agreement with our sponsor, Gateway. So we started to learn all the songs and rehearse a solid set for the shows. And it just felt really great again to be able to rehearse with a full rock band and to know that I was going to be able to rock out at these next shows and not have to do our acoustic set. However, I saw and felt that Ethan just wasn't quite into the band like he used to be. He was missing rehearsals, and when he would show up, he was barely singing. I mean, I can understand that it is hard to get to the point where the band is on the verge of breaking out, and then something happens to kill all that, and then to find the energy to build it back up for the same thing to happen again and again. But it just comes down to how bad he wanted, and I knew Ethan and I just weren't on the same page anymore. Ethan, of course, knew that we had those shows coming up, but he decided to go out of town for one of them. And I was really irritated by this because it was going to be our first show with Ryan and Corey, and our sponsor Gateway knew that we just put the band back together, and I didn't want to have to go out and perform an instrumental set. So I thought to myself and remembered when we were auditioning singers that the only vocalist that stood out was this dude named Jeff. I thought to contact him, which I did. I told him what was going on and asked him if he'd be down to fill in for that show. He said yes, and I thought in the back of my mind that I knew something was going to happen with Ethan, whether he was going to quit or what. I just didn't know, but I knew something was going to happen, and I knew that I needed a game plan, and I had to be ready for anything. And I thought that this would be a good final audition for Jeff, to see how he could handle himself on stage and to see what he was like during the live setting. So it was about a week or two before the show, and we started to rehearse with Jeff, and he learned the sets, and I felt that he was doing a really good job, and I felt pretty confident that the show was going to go well. So on show day, we all met up at the studio, packed up all the gear, and we headed out to Fremont, Washington to play at the High Dive, a venue that I was already really familiar with. And I was really excited about this show because it was the first time I was going to be playing with Ryan and Corey, and I was looking forward to seeing how Jeff would do. So once we hit the stage, we put on a really solid set. I felt everybody played well. I felt Jeff did a pretty good job. And after the show, I had a few fans come up to me, and they were really excited about the addition of Ryan and Corey, and they also went on to tell me that they felt Jeff did really good to the songs. A few days later, we had another show, and Ethan was supposed to be back in town, and I was expecting him to play. But I had this feeling that he just wasn't going to show up, or he just wasn't going to contact me. So I pulled Jeff aside, and I told him, dude, if Ethan doesn't play, are you down to play that show? And he said yes. So as a few days went by, I heard nothing from Ethan. The day of the show, I still haven't heard anything from him. So I called Jeff and I told him, dude, you're on tonight. And we all met up at the studio. We packed up all the gear. We headed out to Renton, Washington to play at this place called Williams Avenue Pub. And I was really bummed out heading out to the venue because I heard nothing from Ethan, and it was clear that he just wasn't going to be there for the show. And it spoke volumes to me just where he stood in this band. So we got to the venue, we put on another great set, everybody played great, and I felt Jeff did a really good job, and things were starting to get really interesting. Well, I finally heard from Ethan the next day. He sent me this really long message starting off with, well man, here it goes. And he basically left the band through a text. Unfortunately, we never got to sit down face to face and talk about this, and he just left in the strangest and weirdest way. And one thing that I did learn, that he was actually moving to New York with his girlfriend anyways. And so it was not the ideal way to part ways with somebody that you cared about. And I was really saddened by this because I knew that we worked well with each other. We had this awesome chemistry. We started the band with each other, and we were the main songwriters and forces in the production of These Young Fools. I mean, he's a talented guy. He's a very awesome songwriter, and I felt that he did such a great job writing vocal melodies to all the songs that I bring to the band. But life goes on, and I had a totally new band to work with.
Once again, I had to spend the summer just building the band back up. We were rehearsing a lot, just learning all the songs and jamming with each other, getting ready for some shows. And unfortunately, I had to rebuild some of our social media platforms from scratch because Ethan decided to lock me out of all the previous accounts, which was so petty and super lame, but what can he do?
We had quite a bit of shows lined up that summer, and all those shows were just really fun to play. There's definitely a new energy amongst the band, and it was very interesting to see how the core TYF fans would take to the new guys, and especially having a new vocalist. And I felt that they took to everything really well, and we just spent the summer just working as hard as we could to gain the momentum back that These Young Fools once had. I also got approached to be booked to play the Seattle Hempfest once again, and that show was very successful for us, and we all had so much fun. And we did a couple more KGRG radio interviews and announced the new guys, and everything was feeling great again. I was getting really excited about the future and really happy that I just stuck with everything and never gave up. I decided that I wanted us to get into the studio to cut an EP and to re-record some of the older TYF songs with the current lineup, especially since we had a new vocalist. I wanted to do 4 songs: A Nice Place to Visit, Fall the Leader, Something Soft, and Pretty Girls. I thought it'd be cool to give a reference to The Hobbit and to call it the There and Back Again EP. I mean, it was extremely interesting to re-record and to also to play these songs with a brand new lineup and a totally new singer. But I felt they did a great job, and I was very thankful that they wanted to continue to play these songs and also believed in them as much as I did, considering that I was the only original member in These Young Fools. I knew this guy working through my job at Solstice Sunglass Boutique, this dude named Harris, and we became really good friends over the years. He was a DJ at 93.3 The Cube for over 20 years, and he was really liking what I was doing with the band. He knew all the ups and downs of my story throughout the years. So especially during this time with the new lineup and the new vocalist, he really wanted to help out and felt that we should establish a residency at one of the venues in Seattle. And so with all of his hard work and the connections he had, he was able to book us a 6-week residency at the prestigious Triple Door, a venue that would normally host jazz, blues, and folk-like bands. But during this time, they wanted to try something new to bring in a different type of audience, and so they wanted to start booking rock bands. And it was a really big opportunity for us, and I was very thankful for all the help that Harris did and all the great work that he did for the band. And it was a very successful time. We were able to play in front of a lot of people over the span of 6 weeks, and we made really good money for the band. Towards the end of the year, we built really solid momentum once again for the band, and I was pretty proud of myself for just keeping the faith, keeping my visions and goals alive in this band. Because definitely early on in the year, I had absolutely no idea what the hell was going to happen. I had no clue if I was going to be able to put this band back together, and definitely had thoughts of quitting. But at the end of the day, I knew that's what I did not want to do. And so I was glad that I just kept on going, kept working hard, and very happy that the full band was back together again. And we had such a fun summer, a very successful fall, and everything was feeling pretty good. But I did see some issues in Jeff that really concerned me. And I didn't know if Ryan and Corey felt the same way, because there are definitely some issues going on. But we did decide after the residency that we wanted to spend about 3 months recording our first EP together that we wanted to release immediately in 2017. So I just wanted to go through that process and to see if everything would work out. At the beginning of 2017, we were still in the studio and almost done cutting our first EP together. We were very fortunate to be recording at Audio Ghost Studios near downtown Seattle. Ryan was actually an intern there and had a really good relationship with the owner, Jay Lee Meezus. And eventually we all had a really good relationship with Jay. And he basically would let us come in anytime we wanted and record for free. I mean, it was a huge connection for us, and I was very thankful for Jay for letting us do that. And it was awesome just coming into a professional studio, and I loved being there, and it was a really cozy place to record. So by that February, we released our first 4-song EP called Awake. Well, the issues with Jeff got worse. He was constantly showing up really late to rehearsals, recording sessions, and just became really difficult to work with in general. So I had to approach Ryan, Corey, and Stu, and we set up a meeting, and turns out that we were on the same page. So we felt that the best decision was to go ahead and fire Jeff from the band. I mean, I typically don't have anything bad to say about the guys that I've worked with in the past, but damn, this guy became a jackass. And I knew that it was possibly going to be a big momentum killer for us, but we all felt that it was the best decision to fire him, and why keep working with a guy that just wasn't fit for the band. We had a lot of game planning that we had to do, and we had to determine what we were going to do next. I felt that some good options could be that we audition vocalists once again. Or since I personally really liked Corey's voice, I felt that he could step up and be the front man, and we possibly find a new drummer. Or we just keep the band a 3-piece, and we have Corey play drums and sing at the same time. My only concern with that was I didn't know how well it would work to not have a front man and just have the lead singer behind a drum set, but I thought if you're killing it on drums and you're killing with the vocals, why would it not work? So with a lot of discussions and a lot of meetings, we all agreed that we wanted to keep the band a 3-piece and have Corey play drums and sing at the same time. Another big decision we made was to change the band name from These Young Fools to Flicker and Fade. And this was one of the hardest decisions I had to make, and I tried everything I could to not let it happen, but I definitely understood why we did it, and I knew where the guys were coming from. I mean, they weren't partial to These Young Fools like I obviously was. And we had so many different lineup changes over the years, and this was now the 3rd vocalist. And so I felt that it was a good move to change the band name, but it was extremely hard for me to let go of the name. I mean, I went from hating it at first to over the years learning to love the name, and through all the different lineups, through all of the ups and downs with These Young Fools, I really wanted that band to make it, and I really wanted that name to be out there, and I fought and I did everything I could to make it happen, and it really took some time for me to let go of the name, but I definitely understood why, and I was really excited for new beginnings, and I did like the name Flicker and Fade. At the beginning of the summer of 2017, we quickly got into high gear with Flicker and Fade. We cut a 3-song EP called Start a Fire and released it immediately. We shot a very high production music video for our single Tension, and we had Audio Dose owner Jaylee Mizas shoot and edit the video. And he's a very talented guy in the video production field as well, and I felt that he did such a great job with the video, and he made the best music video that I've been a part of so far. Come on, so and let this spill into these words. I only wanted to be open, to have it all on the line, so you can wake me when it's over. Tell me that it's just fine. Between lights and life and safety, I choose to be blind. did book quite a bit of shows that summer, and we wanted to establish Flicker and Fade into the scene. We played a lot of good shows, and I was really liking being a three-piece band. And we're getting a lot of good feedback and a lot of good comments about the new lineup and about having Corey play drums and sing at the same time. I mean, it's not necessarily a unique idea, but for Seattle at that time, there wasn't too many bands that had that formula, and I felt that it definitely made us stand out.
I only wanted to be open, to have it all on the line, so you can wake me when it's over, to tell me that it's just fine. Between lights and life and safety, I choose to be blind. So please wake me up, don't let me rest, make me survive.
Once we released the music video to Tension, we immediately got really good feedback from the video, and we attracted lots of new fans, and it did really well for the band, and I was very proud of that music video. And funny story, once my mom saw it, she actually called me up immediately and was like, "Oh my god, this music video is awesome. Your new vocalist sounds amazing, the song is so catchy." And I definitely was, of course, happy to hear that. But at the same time, she never reacted like this to all the previous songs I made with These Young Fools. I mean, she liked them, but she never reacted like she did to this particular song. And she was like, "You guys are gonna make it, the song is gonna do well for you, what are people saying about this video?" And so she was so excited, and I thought, dang, if my mom really likes this song and she thinks that I'm gonna make it, maybe Flicker and Fade is gonna make it.
It's over, to tell me that it's just fine. Between lights and life and safety, I choose to be blind. So please wake me up, don't let me rest, make me survive.
And by the end of that summer and early fall, we were gaining really good momentum for the band. We were getting lots of new fans, and our social media really started to grow, and those fans were taken really well to the Start a Fire EP. And we were getting really good comments about the sound of the band and about Corey's vocals, and the good thing is they were requesting new music. And so we immediately got back into Audio Dose and had a game plan to record 2 more EPs and to release those as soon as we possibly could.
Day 2 of recording.
Day 2, recording guitars.
Michael's got his recording beanie on.
Got my recording beanie on.
Gotta have the beanie.
Stu's here.
Stu's here?
Stu.
Whoa.
Here, come be
Stu,
Stu.
get in here. Get in here, Stu.
With the music business these days, there's an argument about should bands keep releasing and cutting albums, or just taking the route of doing singles and releasing EPs, because people's attention spans these days are really short. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but we wanted to keep going the EP route, and we had planned to work on our second EP and wanted it to be about 5 songs and call it Between the Tides, and it was going to be a little bit heavier and a little darker than Start a Fire. We just cut and released our first single off of Between the Tides, this song called Casualty. And I was really excited about this song because I felt it was a really good representation of where I was at musically at that time. I was definitely angry about a lot of things, especially with all the momentum shifts over the years and just getting to the point with all the bands and different lineups where I felt that we were on the verge of something big and then something happening to kill all that and having to start over and over again. So this song was definitely a really good representation about all those times. It's a powerful and hard-hitting song. I felt Corey did such a great job to the vocals. We also shot a live music video with some footage from when we played at the Rendezvous, and also took some live footage of us at Audio Dose with some really cool lights.
People all around you, can't you see your actions? Be the flood that drowns you. Say hello to my friends and tell them all your truths. Your stories are one-sided, and none of us are
And by the end of the year, our main focus was to finish up the EPs as quick as possible and release them. And everything was feeling pretty damn good. I was really believing that Flicker and Fade had what it took to make it. I knew we had the talent, I knew we had the chemistry amongst the band, and I knew the songs were awesome, and I was really loving Corey's voice to all the songs. And I was really excited about 2018 and what was in store for us.